Okay, so next up, we've got Marek Kirejczyk. I'm sorry if I butcher your name. He's going to talk to us about rapid decentralized application development with useDApp. Wake up!
Hello, guys. Can you hear me? All right. Hey, thank you for coming. Thank you, shout out to organizer for having me. So today we're going to talk about building applications, building perhaps multi-chain DApps, and doing it rapidly. And when we do, let's see if that works. Oop. Ah, that's the one. Boom. We're going to talk about building front-end. And when we talk about building front-end, instant question in your mind be, what is possibly hard about building front-end for DApp? In the end, we're just going to query a node, read a bunch of information, and display it to the user. Well, that's what we thought. And we tried it all. We tried React, we tried Redux, we tried reactive programming, we tried even domain-driven design, and everything turned out to be very complicated and complex code in the front end. What was the reason? Well, there is no a single fundamental issue building front ends, but there is just dozens of these annoying little problems, right? So, for example, if you go to any DApp, you would like to see the content of the DApp, if it's a DEX or a lending platform, you would like to be in this read-only mode where you can read all the stuff, right? But if you connect, you want to be able to interact, right? Easy peasy. Then you want to show the current state of the blockchain, right? So you display all the different variables in all the different places of the interface, but every time a new block arrives, one of the variables might change. So you need to query your node, check if there is a new block, and if there is a new block, update those variables. Which leads us to the next problem that generates a lot of requests. So your Infura bill is not suddenly in thousands of dollars, or your Alchemy bill, or your private node is getting overwhelmed. So yet another problem. Then what you want to do, if someone switched the wallet, you want to refresh the content of the application without changing the context, right? Maybe I'm doing a DEX, I want to do a swap, but I'm on the wrong wallet, so I need to go to the next wallet, and then the whole state is gone, right? That happens also if I'm on the wrong network. So I'm on Ethereum, but I want to do a swap on Optimism, right? Now I lost all the information. And actually, back in the days, there was in documentation for Ethereum, it said if you switch the network, you should refresh the whole page because it's just too complex to update the state accordingly, right? And then there's tracking transactions. Is it pending? Is it succeed? Is it fail? Sounds easy, right? Yeah, but what if user refreshes the page or closes and reopens the next day, right? Do we still track the transaction? If he reopens the next day and he's on the different screen, can he check what was the status of transaction? Can he go back and see the history, right? So all those little problems that makes it so your simple DApp becomes spaghetti code really quickly. So for that, we introduced useDApp. It's going to be a year and a half old now. So it's a framework for rapid DApp development, and it works with with Ethereum and all kinds of EVM chains. And we make it so it works. You don't have to worry about all those problems. You don't need to worry about connection management, reading state, transaction, having multiple chains. It even has strong types with type chain, right? So all that is done. You don't need to worry. You don't need to know how it works under the hood. And how it works under the hood is following. So first, we have a connection, managing connection. So first of all, you get read-only mode out of the box. So you don't need to do any additional configuration. You don't need to do anything. Read-only mode works out of the box. Then whenever you do network switching or you want to operate multiple networks, it just works. What does it mean? Well, here is a piece of code. That's the whole configuration. Assuming starting with one chain, we have just only one chain, let's say mainnet, and the read-only URL is whatever is your Infura or any other node provider. Hopefully, it's your private node that you're using, right? We've wrapped our React application in the app provider, providing the configuration as an argument, and then off we go. We're ready to start working on our application. And our application could be something like this. We want to understand what the balance of the user account is that is connected, right? So we have this hook called useEthers, and it's gonna give us all kinds of cool goodies. And one goodie is the account that we are currently connected to, or might be null if we are not connected at all. And we have this activate browser wallet, which is a function that if we call it, it's going to request the user to connect with their wallet. Might be MetaMask or whatever else you're using. And then to query the ether balance, all we have to do is use hook, use ether balance, provide the account, and all we have to do in our front end, in our HTML and CSS, we just need to make a button to activate browser. When we click, it's going to activate the browser wallet, and we need to display the ether balance. Might be null, hence ether balance, and we can nicely format the balance. So if you use ethers before, you're going to be familiar with methods like format ether. Right? Or we can make it even more complicated example, and let's say on top of our balance, we check the staking, the balance of the staking contract for Ethereum Beacon chain, and yet again we display all the different items, making sure we don't display them if they're null, right? And due to technical reasons, I cannot show you the animation, but that is basically, you don't need to trust me, you can go, this is an example app, this is basically the code extracted from the app, boom, this works, we didn't connect to any account, the ether balance is being displayed right here, right? So before I show you what happens next, I want to talk a little bit about reading from the blockchain. So when we query this ether balance, it will keep updating itself every time there is a new block. And that happens also when you change the wallet or network. But there's a very important thing. If I have 100 different items displayed in the user interface, and those all items need to be refreshed, it's going to be just a single query to the node. And the way it happens is there is a heartbeat, and hey, I'm querying that node. Do you have a new block? No. Do you have a new block? No. Do you have a new block? No. Do you have a new block? Oh, there is a new block. So what I'm doing is I'm gathering all the different inputs from the whole user interface that are being displayed and squash them into one list and do one single query to the node, a single multi-call. And then when the data goes back from the node, I'm going to distribute it back into all the different places in the interface. So that works. It might be a few multi-calls if I'm connected to more than one network at a time, right? So coming back to our example, you've seen, again, just asking what the account of the user is and asking for the balance of the user and the staking contract. And when I click connect and accept with MetaMask, it's going to nothing else. There is no code here, no more code here than what you've seen on the previous slide, and it shows the account, how much ETH is staked in the contract. But because we connected to one of the test networks, now it's only 32 ETH. I think it was Kovan when we make this screenshot. There is a user account, and there is a balance on the account that displays automatically. If user makes a transaction or anything, it's going to update automatically as well. So in general case, if you want to read from a smart contract, anything you want to read from the smart contract, you can. You use this use contract call, right? So here's an example. How use token balance is implemented. So you can query any token smart contract for the balance. And the way you do that is you use contract call. You provide the interface, ABI interface. Again, under the hood, it uses headers. So you might be pretty familiar with that as well. You need to provide the address of the token, the name of the function, and the parameters. Again, making sure we're not providing nulls. And that's it. And that use contract call already takes care of all the refreshing and all the updating. Good. Transactions. So tracking transaction state. Even if we close the browser, even if we reopen, even if we went to another tab, Having notifications, so ability to display users, the transaction was mined, kind of, or transaction is pending, and the history of transactions are the 3 features that we provide. And here is an example. We're going to start just sending some Ether. Again, we have a useSendTransaction hook, which provides with 2 things. First, send transaction function that we can use to send money around. So we have a send transaction as an argument that basically takes an Ether's transaction, so fields like to and value is things, or you can also have a data or other fields as well. And basically, I can send a transaction. What is the cool thing is the state variable that basically has one of the five states, right? It's either none, so nothing happened, user didn't request to do any transaction, or it's mining, which means transaction was issued, success, it was successfully mined, failed, transaction failed, and exception, which might happen, for example, if users reject the transaction in MetaMask, right? So with that, you can really simply build. Here is an example interface. Again, can't do animation for technical reasons, but if you click send, you can very easily just doing a switch or if on the state and display rudder or error message or whatever else you want to display for the given state. And again, more general case for smart contracts, you have 2 functions, send and state. State works exactly the same. Send is very similar. First, you need to provide for use contract function the contract, which already contains an API and the address of the contract, the name of the function, and the send will accept the same list of arguments that is accepted by the smart contract function. And on top of that, you can have one last additional argument, which you can see in the second example, which you can do transaction overrides, right? So you can add value or change the value of gas or something like that. Right. All right. So not much to show here. All right. Oh, we're doing good with time. So now the most important thing, if we want to build on multi-chain, all you have to do is to any of those functions, the reading, the writing function has additional options parameter, and you can just provide the chain ID, which might be static or dynamic, that tells you I want to read from this chain or I want to read from that chain. By default, it reads either from the default read-only chain or from the wallet that is connected, but you can display easily data from multiple chains with that. All you need to do in configuration is to provide additional URLs for nodes. All right, and if you want to switch network, so let's say you want to build an experience, maybe it's a DEX or maybe it's a bridge, where you go in the specific flow and you get to a point when someone is ready to do the action, but he is connected to the wrong network, then you can use the switch network function that is again provided by useEthers, which will allow you to simply request change of the network, and you can display, hey, as long as I'm on the wrong network, please switch the network. When you switch the network to the right network, just make the button enabled or something, right? So it's really, really simple. You don't need any extra handling if you want to build multi-chain flows, which requires you to chain multiple actions on different chains. Anything that we've shown so far is perfectly sufficient. All right. Whoop. Wrong button. All right, and you have those 2 additional hooks, use transactions and use notifications. Use transactions give you the history of all transactions that was issued by the user with all the different states, right? So might be mined, exception, failed, mining. And this is stored in the off-chain storage, so in local storage in the browser, so if you refresh or you reopen application in a few days, it's still going to work. And the notification hooks give you an array of notification, which is kind of similar to transactions. The difference is that notification will disappear in pre-configured time. I think the default is 50 seconds, so you can just iterate over those and just display like nice balloons or pop-ups showing to the user, okay, oh, transaction was mined, oh, transaction was issued, right? So it's just a very simple HTML and CSS work to make it a great user experience. Right, and some things, a lot of people were asking about the events. So events, if you use contract function, if you use contract function, then you can, then one additional value that is being returned is event. So you can just query those. All right, there is a lot of other goodies. So we have hooks for ENS, for gas price, for block data. If you use block meta, then it's going to be all squashed into a single multi-call like the other things. And we have a lot of those helpers that makes it really simple to work with multiple chains. So like get me an Explorer, get me a link for the Explorer for the specific address or for specific transactions. This is really getting annoying if you don't have those, if you're on the multiple chains, right? Or get me a chain name, right? And all the information is packed in a way that you can provide a single argument and get, like, for example, a contract, and you can get the response. There's also shorten address, which comes in handy pretty often. And we support a lot of networks. I don't think that's an exhaustive list anymore, but if there is a network you don't see here, it's very simple to actually just add a new network. It's just a simple few properties that you need to add, like, the name of the network, the chain ID, perhaps a name of the network, the addresses for the explorers, but also the address of the multi-call contract on specific network. All right, we also have a browser plugin available for Firefox and Chrome, and it kind of allows you to see what's going on under the hood. So you can see, for example, calls updated. So let's start with simple things. 25,730 something block found means, new block was mined, right? Two-state updates means we query a multi-call, and there were two changes to the state that's going to be distributed over to the UI. And two calls updated or -1 call updated means new stuff showed up in the interface that we're going to track with the multi-call. All were removed, and network connected simply means we changed the wallet we are connected to. We changed with the wallet the network we're connected to. All right, and some last-minute things that I added to the presentation. So this is rock-solid framework we use on production. We use, a lot of DeFi applications are very heavy on the numbers of variables and display a lot of things in the different places. So a lot of those little optimizations really help, and that was one of the things that people were asking for as well in the GitHub issues. So for example, you can make a call static. If you're querying a contract for a token name, it probably doesn't change every block or even along the lifetime of using of the application. So you can use isStaticTrue and therefore make it so it's not included in the multi-call. If you don't want to refresh every block, but let's say every 5 block, that's a snippet number 2. And we actually discovered, and this is an interesting one, we discovered that encoding now takes so much time that it makes browser a little bit slower. So we re-implemented ABI encoding ourselves. So if you have a long list of variables that you want to display, you might want to use fast multi-call encoding flag as well. So yeah, if you're not using it yet, go to useDApp.io and check it out. Maybe you want to use it. And
thank you very much, Mike. We've got a bit of time for a question over here. Ooh, many questions.
Just a detailed one for resending a transaction with higher gas, which I found many dApps don't really handle. They still track the old transaction. And if I resend it with higher gas, because for whatever reason the gas price was too low that I originally sent, does it handle that?
What was that last sentence?
I sent a transaction, accidentally put 1 GWay, which is way too low. Then I used MetaMask's built-in increased gas, which has a higher nonce, so different transaction hash. And many DApps I found don't handle this, so I have to full-page refresh.
I believe someone implemented it a year ago. It was a pull request. I can't tell you for sure, but I believe it is handled now well.
Okay, thanks.
And I think important detail is we have a 3 people team now. So if there is any, like we really, so the history was we created it, and I founded this company called ETHWorks. It was acquired by TrueFi, and for a half a year we didn't maintain it. And at the beginning of this year we built a team, and they kind of clear up the issues. And we think it's really rock solid and battle tested. But if there is anything you find that you think is missing, then if you make an issue, we really look at those now.
Thank you.
Great app. Looking forward to using that. A question I have is, how do you handle the wallet connections? You say that there is the way to connect the wallet, but usually, depending on the wallet, there will be a different way of connect. There is wallet connect, there is hardware wallets. Do you handle that in the app?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there is a very good support for MetaMask. But there is also, we have backward compatibility with Web3 React connectors. I think that is slowly getting less and less popular. So version 1.0 we released earlier this year, which we perceive to be feature complete. 1.1 was released most recently, which was like production ready stuff, optimizations, all the little problems, and in 1.2 we actually want to focus on connecting different wallets, and one of the directions we are exploring is, for example, porting Rainbow kit on top of useDApp. So I think it should be good enough right now, but we want to get into much better place soon.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful report. Have you already developed unit testing tools or helpers, or do you plan?
Okay, so testing, my favorite topic. I also, a few years earlier, I developed a library called Waffle that some of you might have heard about. So testing interface is super annoying and super difficult. So I don't think you can do much unit testing. I mean, unit testing is like you can just test, you can just test your function, so you can do that. One thing that we built and wasn't very happy about and improved recently is testing hooks. So there are special tests that allows you to test hooks because it's basically, it's a hook library, right? So yeah, I think I didn't try it. It was developed by the team, but they told me it's really good. So make your judgment yourself. One more question, I believe.
Is there any chance you will support other frameworks as well, like Angular or Vue.js, because it's quite React-focused?
We don't have plans now supporting other frameworks. React, comes with pros and cons. It was not our favorite framework where we started building on Web3, but we really tried different options, and it seems the hooks are just working. And I mean, using useDApp really, so you probably have some accumulators in your applications that might require using things like the graph and so on, right? But everything that you can just read from the smart contracts, it became so simple with useDApp and with React that the question is why you really want to use our framework. That's our, unless you're already using other framework, which obviously, right? But it's just the speed of building, and also you can put good HTML, CSS guy with some basic JavaScript knowledge, and he can do such a big part of your application now, while have your hardcore Web3 developers focus on, the graph, smart contracts, or wherever else. Then it's really economically not, we're not very motivated to build other frameworks because it just works so fine. Just hire another guy to read the whole of your application. It's going to be much cheaper than 2 Web3 developers.
Thank you very much, Marek. We don't have time for any more questions.
Thank you, guys.